Howdy, howdy, hey, y'all. We need to have a chat today, and it's a little bit of a safety chat. We need to talk about something that way too many of us end up dealing with at some point, and literally no one really prepares us for it properly. And that's what happens when our content gets stolen. Because I don't know about y'all, but the reality for me is the second when I see my content somewhere I didn't put it, my brain goes straight into panic mode, and then it flips to, hey, I'm pissed now. And honestly, both those reactions, totally valid, okay? That's our content that we worked for. That is our bodies, our times, our energy, and our business. And now it is just sitting in the ether somewhere we did not agree to it going. And what almost everyone does next is they go, okay, DMCA takedown time. That's the thing. That's what I'm supposed to do. But hold, pause. Here's the problem. DMCA is not this magic button where we just press it and all of our explicit content we didn't agree to be up disappears from the internet. That's not what it was built for, really. And if you don't understand what it actually does, we can end up creating a second problem for ourselves while trying to fix the first one. Hey, I learned, kind of speaking from experience here. So the real conversation we need to have is not just how do we remove our stolen content, it's how do we remove it without screwing ourselves over in the process. Because DMCA is a copyright process. That is it. That is what it exists for. It was built to handle situations where someone is using or distributing work that we own without our permission. So if you created the content, the photos, the videos, the clips, the captions, whatever the hell it is, and someone took it and reposted it, yeah, sure, that falls under copyright. That's where DMCA makes a lot of sense. But a lot of us, especially in this industry, we are not just dealing with copyright issues. We are dealing with consent issues. And those are not the same thing, nor are they the same processes. Because if somebody is posting intimate, sexual, or nude content of us without our permission, that's not just say, hey, someone stole my work. No, we're going up a notch. That is non-consensual intimate imagery. And that is a completely different category of harm. And very often, platforms treat those different categories, again, very differently. They have completely separate reporting systems for those situations because they're built around victim safety, not intellectual property. And this is where a lot of people, hey, I'm people, mess up. We default to DMCA because that's the term we know. That's what's been beat into our brains since day one. Get a DMCA takedown service, right? But it is not always the best first move. So let's talk about why DMCA can actually be kind of freaking risky for us, especially as adult content creators. Because DMCA notices require identifying information, and that is non-optional. You must include contact details such as our legal name, our legal address, even private emails or phone numbers to be contacted at. And that information goes to the infringing party. And further than that, we have to make these statements under penalty of perjury, and we have to essentially identify ourselves as the person making the claim. And that matters so much more in this industry than it does in most others, because we aren't just protecting files or content. No, we are protecting the separation between church and state, our creator identity and our legal identity. So when we file a DMCA notice, we have to understand that that information does not disappear into a void or into a lawyer's cupboard and it just stays there. No. Depending on the platform and the process, all that information that you gave can be shared, forwarded, archived, or even published in transparency databases. There are entire systems built to track every takedown request. So that means our information can travel a hell of a lot further than we think it will. I'm not going to share the online archive system that we found that tracks all of this here on YouTube, as it's not information that we need to be broadcasting for everybody. No, if you hop over to the Creator Spicy Tea Patreon, there is an article going over this in depth, including ways to make sure your legal information has not been archived or tracked in that system. Go check it out, okay? So no, the safe assumption is not this private legal information of mine that I'm submitting stays private forever. No. Nope. Unfortunately, the safer assumption is anything I submit in a legal process can and likely will end up somewhere I don't expect. And that doesn't, let's take a pause, because I'm not saying don't ever use DMCA. It just means we have to be strategic about it. If you're putting your legal name, your personal email, your home address, and all of that into that process without thinking, we are potentially exposing ourselves in ways that there is no real undo button. And if you're using a takedown service, say like Brandit Scan, which is what I use, you need to actually ask them what information they're submitting on your behalf, because we'll handle it for you. That does not automatically mean that our identity is protected. No! Sometimes they file as an authorization. Great, we love that. Use your info. Sometimes our information is still attached to those notices, and we don't know until we ask and dig in and figure that out for sure. So let's shift to the other side of this, because this is where a lot of us actually have better options. And hey, I didn't even know this existed, so maybe you didn't either. So if the content is intimate, if it is sexual, if it is nude, if it is shared without your consent, you could be looking at NCII reporting first. NCII stands for non-consensual intimate imagery. And the key difference here is that NCII systems are built around consent, not ownership. Because here's something that kind of trips people up. You do not have to own the copyright to request removal of intimate content of yourself. You don't. If somebody else took that photo, if it was, let's say, I don't know, a custom, a collaboration, if it was recorded or stolen in some other way, you can still report it if you did not consent to it being shared, even if the other person has the copyright, and that's huge. Because DMCA only answers the question of, do I own this content, right? NCII answers the question of, did I consent to this being distributed? And those are not interchangeable. Even, like, let's just say, pick a platform. Even just Reddit has specific rules against posting intimate content without consent, and they have reporting tools for exactly that. Google, for example, has removal pathways specifically for personal sexual content in search results. So, if you're dealing with something that falls into that NCII category, you should be using the system that was actually built for the problem first. So there are also tools like Stop NCII, which are designed specifically for this type of situation. I'm going to go ahead and make sure and get the link for Stop NCII down in the description box below. Love me, please. If I forget, yell at me in the comments. Thank you. So what that does basically is it creates a hash, basically a digital fingerprint of your content without uploading the content itself. That fingerprint gets shared with participating platforms so that they can detect and remove matching content. What it does not do is require you to share your legal, personal, private information. Is it perfect? Is anything? No, but it works best for exact or near exact copies of your content. So if something is like getting heavily edited, way cropped down, re-recorded, whatever, it might not get caught. But as part of a broader strategy, it's an important tool to know about. And that's the word that really matters right here, strategy. Because stolen content removal is usually not a one-step fix. And this is another place where people get frustrated because they'll remove something from one place, think we're done, and then wham, bam, it's still showing up somewhere else, especially with Google. Removing something from Google search, unfortunately, does not mean it is removed from the internet. It just means it's not pulling up on Google anymore. That original content that was stolen can still exist on the website that's hosting it, unfortunately. So now we're dealing with multiple layers. You might need to report the content directly to the hosting site. You might need to submit a search removal request. You might need to file an NCII report. You might still, in the end, need to use DMCA. It's not one tool that we have. It's a combination of tools depending on what we're dealing with. Yeah, and it's annoying. It's a lot. And it's not as simple as it really freaking should be. But it's better than thinking we fixed it when all we did was close the door and then just let the window stay open. So let's bring this back to something practical here. If the issue is clearly copyright, meaning you created the content and someone's distributing it without your permission, DMCA can absolutely be the right move. But pause. Hold, because if that content is intimate content being shared without your consent, start with NCII reporting on that platform if it is a part of that program. If both apply, which is honestly the most common in this industry, you may need to use both, but you need to think carefully about what information you're giving in each process before you hit submit. Okay? Use a business email instead of a personal one. Avoid using your home address if you can. If you have an LLC, get a registered agent for this. And if you're working with a takedown service, verify exactly what they're submitting on your behalf, okay? And don't assume that just because someone says they're handling it for you, that your information is automatically protected. It might not be. And most importantly, we all have to stop thinking of DMCA as the default for everything. It is a tool, yes, but it is not the only tool. And when we're dealing with something as sensitive as intimate content, our safety matters just as much as getting that content taken down, right? So the next time something like this happens, instead of jumping straight into panic mode and grabbing the first solution that has been beat into our brain, pause for a second and ask yourself one question. Am I dealing with a copyright problem or am I dealing with a consent problem? Because that answer is going to determine everything that comes next. Okay, so over on the Creators Spicy Tea Patreon is 2 in-depth articles breaking down the DMCA risks and the difference between DMCA and NCII. It's so important to know the risks and the benefits of both before deciding to dive into either. More often than not, both tools might be necessary to get your personal content and personal imagery taken down. All right, y'all. So this was a little bit of a quick one today, but I hope that those little nuggets of info could have helped anyone at all. Please, please, please be sure to check the description box below. Check out those full in-depth written articles on this for way more information than I can put in a YouTube video and keep that video at all interesting, right? Alrighty. Thank you all so much for sitting on down with me today. I really, really, really hope you are so safe. So safe. I hope you are sane, and above all, I hope you're thriving.